hitting the button.
Can you tell us when we're live?
She's gonna give me a house count. If Una, we'll say hi to Una.
You know, one of our tech guys will be online tonight. This is usually our least attended meeting
Okay.
of the year.
We're good?
We're good.
All right. I'd like to call the Board of Education regular board meeting of June 17th, 2021 to order. If we could have a roll call, please.
Val Jordan,
Here.
Espinoza,
Here.
Joseph,
Here.
Ruffner,
Here.
Sturban, Sullivan,
Here.
Warshaw.
Here.
Thank you.
We would open our meeting to public comment. We have no one in the audience in person. Do we have any pre-submitted public comments? Then we shall move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, I don't have any standalone reports today, but rather I have a small list of updates. Much smaller than last month when I think I went on for a good half hour. Recently, we hosted a Fill the Bus event for food and toiletry supplies for the Palatine Township. And we filled 2 buses with donations from staff and students. Buses traveled the neighborhood picking things up as well. This was our contribution to the Coming Together in Skokie's focus for this year. Historically, they've always focused on one cultural or ethnic group and sort of highlighted them. This year, they decided to focus on food insecurity given the pandemic. So they've been working on various initiatives in different districts that are part of the township. So that the districts are able to identify how they're going to contribute. We held the first and biggest event. I understand that at a Coming Together in Skokie event yesterday, there was a lot of accolades sung about District 68's efforts, and we were held up as a model for the other districts for how they can contribute as well. Deanna Juarez, our family engagement coordinator, is our representative on the committee, and she represents us very well, and she spearheaded the whole Fill the Bus food event that we had. So we'll do similar events like that as we go into next year as well, I'm sure. Summer school, I don't know how many of you might have seen the article that came out about a week or so about summer school, where it was, I think, on the front page of the Tribune that kids don't want to come and parents don't want to send them. And that was something we wondered what that was going to be like a few months ago. Were we going to get teachers? Were we going to get parents willing to send kids? And the article rings pretty true. We only have 70 kids between kindergarten, first grade, and sixth grade who have signed up for summer school, even after invites and encouragement from teachers as well. So it's a smaller summer school than usual. I'd say in recent years we probably tracked around 120 with participation. I think probably the best explanation I can think of is people want a normal summer and want to be able to get out and live their best lives with their children over the summer, and the idea of more school right now just may not be what people are really looking for. I think people are looking for that break from a difficult learning year and some more quality family time, hopefully outdoors and with some more normality. Let's see, this Monday and Tuesday, we had our first leadership retreat of the summer. Usually we only have one, it's usually 2 days. We usually do it like in late July as we're kind of ramping up and preparing for the school year. This year we took sort of a different tact in that we scheduled them this last Monday and Tuesday before principals leave for their break, with the idea being that everybody needed to kind of debrief, process the difficult 15 months that we've been through, and then start to put some initial things in place for how we're going to get a restart on school in District 68 come the fall. We do have one more leadership retreat date set in late July that we hope to be able to use the new guidance that I'm sure is coming that will help us solve some of our lingering questions about what school will look like at the beginning of the school year. The focus that is really coming out of our retreat for next year is really around the notion of rebound. and refresh, restart, re-energize, reinvigorate, all those positive words that we've accumulated, probably a list of 40 something already. But the notion of having to go back and remediate is not something we think that is a direction that we're going to take. We're going to continue moving forward and accelerating with our kids. We'll address learning gaps or as we find them, but we're going to keep moving forward with instruction for our kids. We really don't believe that the narrative of learning loss is as pervasive for the majority of kids as was feared. We'll have more information about that as we get assessment data in the first couple weeks of school with our MAP testing. One of the things that we've talked about is a lot of our systems and processes had to be stalled. How we were approaching school improvement planning and teacher clarity and a lot of our other initiatives really got stalled this year because it was a very difficult year to continue with business as usual. So we have a lot of things to get a reset on. We had some really good momentum on a number of things that was interrupted. So our focus for this year is getting everything back on track. And we were also looking at what are some of the projects, new projects that are coming up this year. And we have a handful already. One is it's time for the social studies learning team. It's been a number of years since our social studies curriculum has been renewed and reinvigorated, and it's high time to do that. In addition, we'll have that early childhood learning team, and we even have a third one, which is that learning environment learning team, which got bumped off from this last year. So we have a very, very full plate going into next year. And what I stated and reiterated over and over again at this leadership retreat is hold the new ideas for right now, because we have a very full plate as it is with new things that we're going to be working on out of these learning teams, plus everything else we're already doing. So we are going to do our best to not pursue a lot of new directions and new ideas while we get kids back in, get learning back in place in a more traditional format and figure out where we are. So we have quite a year ahead of us. It was a difficult year behind us. It's going to be a lot of work to get back and get everything set up. So you'll probably hear from me over and over again our hesitancy to engage in new directions and new projects right now. And then after next year is when we redo a 5-year strategic plan. So we have some things to finish up in this current strategic plan, several of them I just listed, and that would seem to be the time to look at what new directions we need to go in. So I think that was a very welcome message with the leadership team. They're exhausted. Today was their last day at work, and they're off for 3 weeks before they come back. So that's all I've got for superintendent reports.
Thank you. All right.
A little typo here.
Oh, thank you.
It's May 26th instead of 28th.
Okay, that was a special meeting. Thank you. All right, so we shall move to a reading and acceptance of minutes. I call for a motion to approve the minutes from the May 20th, 2021 Board of Education regular meeting, the May 20th, 21 Board of Education closed session, the May 26th, 2021 Board of Education special meeting, and the May 28th, 2021 Board of Education closed session.
26th.
Both of them,
Yes.
May 26th. Oh, sorry, thank you. And the May 26th Board of Education closed session.
So
Second.
Espinoza.
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Warshaw.
Yes.
Bell Jordan.
Yes.
We move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Consent agenda is our next item of business. Does any member wish to remove any item for separate consideration? Nope. Then I call for a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the personnel report authorizing the change of status and leave of absence for administrators, the hire, resignation, change of status, and leave of absence for licensed staff, the hire, change of status, and leave of absence for classified staff, administrator and non-affiliated staff salary increases, financial reports, pay orders and expenditures, and the renewal of workman's compensation insurance with Accident Fund National Insurance Company.
So moved.
Second.
Joseph,
Yes.
Rockner,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw,
Yes.
Beljordan. Yes. Espinoza.
Yes.
Wonderful. We shall move to reports and discussion items. I don't believe there is an NDDSE report.
No, I was adding that.
Thank you. And therefore, we will hand over the floor to the tentative 21-22 budget. Drum roll, please.
I'm glad at least somebody's excited. Thank you all for having me tonight. Tonight I will go over the tentative 2022 budget for next school year. As Dr. Garwood mentioned, this is kind of a rebound year, and budget-wise, it's the same thing. We're kind of putting back the old allocations that we had per pupil. We kind of cut them down last year, not really knowing what to expect. When kids will get back in the classroom, when they win. This is kind of we're back in the swing of things. This is a normal school year looking forward. Some of the priorities that we have going into next year, the continued professional development on equity and also teacher clarity and school improvement, again, as Dr. Garwood mentioned earlier. New EL literacy professional development for our EL teachers. There's a big check we're gonna write to NTDSE, our renovation project cost for the Malloy Education Service Center is up this year, so we'll make that payment to them. We also have a generator construction project going on that the board approved earlier in the spring to kind of back up some of our tech systems and software to make sure that we're always consistently running. Even when the power goes out, we can still have school and servers and internet works, and which leads to phones working and people can call, and very important. Property taxes is always a big thing, and then again, as Dr. Garwood mentioned, kind of adapting the new social studies curriculum and some of those other learning teams, the learning environment, as well as the ECC learning team as well. So just a quick overview of the budget. As you can see on each column, the bar on the left kind of represents a projected balance of where we'll be when we officially close our books on June 30th and start the new fiscal year on July 1st. Kind of moving along, the second bar is a projected revenue in each of those funds. Projected expenditures is the third, and then the final bar in each column is the projected ending balance for where we'll be next year. Looking more at numbers, we're starting the year off projected at about $41 million in reserves and look to end the year next year at about 41 million in reserves. We're looking at a pretty even budget this year, all things considered. We'll start with revenues. Looking at revenues, it's kind of broken up a little differently than in years past. The federal aid is increased to 12%, and a major factor of that is the ESSER funds that we'll be receiving throughout the year. Typically, federal is anywhere between about 3 and 5%, so you can kind of see there is a huge increase. We'll see an increase in the ESSER funds as well as an increase in regular budgeted National School Lunch Program reimbursements. The Department of Agriculture has reapproved free lunches and breakfast for everybody next year. That was huge for our community, and anybody under the age of 18 that wanted to come and get a free lunch or breakfast all of last year, which we started right after the pandemic started. And when it's free, more people eat, and when more people eat, we get more reimbursement. So it also costs more. There's a little more cost and expenditure associated with that, but it does increase our federal return. State aid is slightly lower then because just the overall proportion, but we're looking at about the same amount of state aid revenue coming in as in years past. Again, proportionate wise for years past, taxes and CPPRT is about the same as what we get. Obviously a little increase with levy every year, but proportionate wise, the percentage is a little down because of that increase in federal revenue.
Yeah, that federal was 5% last year's.
Yeah, so it's quite a jump. We'll start with our biggest revenue source is property taxes. We can only increase our levy, which collects property taxes 1.4% in 2021. So that information will come back around in November when we do the tentative levy and the financial projections. Last year was 2.3, and that was basically the highest it had been in a few years. The average has been 1.6 over the last 5, or 1.96. So you can see last year kind of boosted up a little bit, and this year we'll bring it back down. We're still holding our collection rates at 98%, so that means, with overall, with refunds and everything else, when we get our final levy, after paying out those refunds, usually we collect about 98% of that total levy. We've been budgeting at 98% for a few years, and pretty accurate at the end of the day when all the taxes have been paid and collected. Tax appeals and refunds are continuing to be an issue. We still have open PTAP cases. During the past year, we paid out refunds that date back still all the way to 2012, just from open cases. Circuit Court, district that has been able to intervene since 2007, but there's still some major cases going that way. Already this year, we've been charged over $1 million in refunds, and I expect to see that coming. Now, kind of a little preview for November with the levy presentation. There is a new bill, Senate Bill 508, that's out there that currently has passed both the House and the Senate in Illinois, and that bill allows school districts to recuperate that money or kind of add those refunds back that they paid in a year onto their next levy. So kind of making the district whole, if you will. It hasn't been approved, or it hasn't been signed yet. It is effective immediately once it is signed, but there's still a lot of questions about how those taxes would be collected. Would it be part of, on the levy process? Would the board need to approve that? Would they not need to approve that? There's still a lot of questions, and that's potentially one of the reasons why it's not signed. So more detailed information will come again in November when we go over the tentative levy. New property has slowed down drastically in the district. Typically, we in the past 10 years have seen about 1.5 million. Last year was 0. And that's affected because new property is added on top of the levy, and about $1 million in new property equates to about $28,000 of new levy money that we can access every year, and that's compounded year after year after year. So a year with 0 kind of hurt a little bit, but that's okay. We'll move forward. It'll be okay. Federal revenue, title grants are expected to decrease slightly, but stay relatively the same. IDEA grants, again, are now being realized by the district and not NTDSE. Last year was the first year that happened. It actually went fairly smoothly, luckily, but we'll continue to see that revenue. But then again, we'll pay it back to NTDSE, so that kind of increased it. So it's basically a wash. ESSER monies to be received, a majority of it in FY22. ESSER 1, we've collected a little bit, but most of ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 will be collected in FY22, and part of ESSER 3 will be collected in FY22. But ESSER 3 we can also spend through FY24, so we do have a few expenditures expected to last all 3 years. And then food service reimbursements, as I mentioned earlier, will also increase, which is why we've seen that big increase in federal revenue. Other revenue, interest income projected at 1.5% for this year. Student fees relatively stable. Lunch revenue obviously decreases. Regular lunch revenue, not federal reimbursement, because if nobody has to pay. We do expect to run a regular food service at the junior high and at the elementary school, so kind of bringing back hot menu items again, and some a la carte menu items. So there will be probably a little bit of revenue for those a la carte items, but not very much. Probably not very material. And then the EL Parent Center, hopefully those revenues continue. And, you know, it did include kind of bringing back the parent mentor program back to the district. State revenue, evidence-based funding has been around. This is the 4th year for evidence-based funding. We've been held harmless. That dollar amount basically hasn't increased. We are basically level 4, which means we don't need it as much as other districts. So it's a good thing. Other districts have seen major increases in their state funding, but they've needed to see major increases in their state funding. We haven't needed to, so we haven't seen it. But we are still continuing to get the same amount at least, and they're not taking from us to give to somebody else. Categorical grants are continuing to be the same. Most of the special ed ones were moved into the EBF, but we still get some transportation increases. Unknown future, TRS, whether or not they move that onto the levy, if they keep it separate, if there will be a tax freeze. I don't really see that going on right now with a certain governor in place. And there's always something new that the state can just kind of manipulate and do, like Senate Bill 508 that kind of just came up, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing for us at least. Are there any revenue questions?
So in this case, the something new is good for us, but do you have any projections of what something new might be that isn't so good for us? Are there any rumblings that, you've been hearing?
I haven't really heard anything negative in a while. I think they've been more focused on, they've been paying the pension. They've been increasing their pension distributions or disbursements into the system. So
To the level they were supposed to be paying all along.
yes, so it's not quite full yet, or it's not quite 100% of what it should be, but they are paying the level that they've said they're now going to pay and keep up. So a lot of those pension talks have subsided at least a little bit, and there's other issues at the forefront other than school district revenue.
That's been hanging over pre-pandemic,
There hasn't been much buzz about pension for a couple of years now, right?
A few years ago, they approved tier 3 of TRS, and that kind of leveled off. It needed to be approved by the IRS. It's still a little shaky whether it has, but TRS is kind of revamping itself right now too. There's a whole new reporting system that we're starting next year that we have to report more information more often to TRS. So I think they're trying to get a little better idea of where they're at or what they need. And I think a lot of pressure has been off of them the last probably 2 years now, which so I know I leave it on there. It probably looks the same as it does in years past, but that's something new. Kind of just it can pop up whenever.
Thanks, Brian.
Oh, I was just gonna mention, there's this week I just saw the thing in Google News about the Lincolnwood Town Center declaring for bankruptcy, so I was like, is there any Skokie rumblings of commercial business or anything like that you've heard?
I haven't really.
The owners going
I saw
bankrupt.
about
They were part of that, it was a bitter
Yeah,
phase.
it's
They
like
have bankruptcy protection, I guess I wonder.
Yeah, there's 150 small to mid-sized malls in the country owned by this one group, and they're going bankrupt. So we don't know what that means in terms of what's going to happen to the shopping there.
I mean, every time I'm out during the day, everybody listened to me last fall, and they're over there in the parking lot, hopefully,
I tell
spending
you,
money in the mall. I mean,
Just
It's
get
just packed.
She's hoping.
I know that.
Yeah.
It is always.
Outdoor, we did outdoor at Don Julio's, and still hard to find parking spots.
Yeah, I was gonna say
If
that
their
hasn't
mall in
changed.
Lincolnwood shuts down, maybe that drives more revenue to Total Door.
That's what I was like,
Yeah.
Or one store.
That, their theater still isn't open yet, the one that just opened there, because they redid the CMX theater. So then that I think is actually still technically closed, so that's,
The front, the one
one
on the front?
one is, but not the other or
The
something
one
like
on the
that.
front,
The one that
right?
serves the
Or the
dinner
one in
isn't
the back?
open yet.
That could be it, okay.
And I haven't heard anything yet of what was moving into Lord and Taylor, I think.
Yeah,
You know, I haven't heard anything about.
it's a
About
VR, the last time I saw it.
It's still
That's- It's a virtual reality
Okay,
for teenage kids, perfect.
that's a lot of room in there then.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's an indoor
could be an
virtual
actual
reality
reality.
playground.
Giant paintball, if you wanted to. So, yeah, I know.
As
there
long
was-
as something's in there though, that's good, you know.
Yeah, they're paying the
They're
rent.
bringing people in, I think, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if there was like some Skokie business trends that you might know of or something like that that would affect us anyway, but when I saw that, I'm like, they could really? I haven't been there in 15 years, that makes sense.
Just make sure you go over there within the next 15
Oh,
years.
yeah.
Please.
Any other revenue type questions? Alright, into the fun expenditures. This is where usually I say we are in the people business, salaries and benefits. This has been relatively stagnant over the last couple of years. We've been down a little bit, and again, that's kind of because capital has been up. So majority reason for that capital increase or level, I typically like to see it between 3 and 5%. Again, notice that $1 million plus payment that we make to NTDSC this year. There are a few licensed staffing changes for salaries. The board kind of talked and approved the new MTSS interventionist grant paid positions next year, which increase it. The new social worker at the junior high that the board discussed in the spring as well. It's kind of taking it from the services, the payment to the police department and putting it into salaries, but that again increases salaries and lowers the services payments overall. Not many classified staffing changes, just a few Ts, but overall relatively stable classified costs, and then the total salary increases about 3.1%. Benefit changes, our PPO decreased, our HMO decreased, and our dental decreased. When people are quarantined, they're not allowed to go to the doctor, and therefore, first time ever, I've seen all three medical kind of costs
The medical
go down.
industry survive.
A lot of people are staying, distanced and wearing masks, they're not
Wearing
getting
masks,
sick as much.
they're
Yeah,
not
did I hear the
getting as
stat there was
sick.
no flu, no major flu
Outbreak.
We
outbreak?
actually think that there's several strains of flu that will have gone extinct, so it's gonna be, it's gonna,
Masks on in October.
There,
they don't have as many strains to have to guess from to be able to make a vaccine.
Oh, okay.
However, when you increase salary by 3.1%, still you've got some other benefits that increase. You've got social security, you've got pension benefits, you've got some other things that do go up, even though we do slightly see a decrease in the insurance premium. So that is overall less than 1%
Does
increase.
that include the impact of the personal time in negotiating the contract? The vacation, teacher?
Not really,
That-
because
that
they had
covers it.
2 business days
Was it?
before, now
Yeah.
they're personal, it allows them to use them with less restrictions, but we don't
Not
have any
that.
clear indication of how much more they would be used, but.
Right.
it should-
And that's still paid time off, so it doesn't really affect a fiscal cost.
The sub-budget maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little increase in subs, but. Services, just a slight increase of 2.4%, kind of looking at additional PE, kind of that rebound type PE, getting back in the classroom, things like that. Major supply material costs, we're looking at about $100,000 in social studies curriculum purchase. After we have that learning team, we'll kind of find out where we need to go. New cycle of iPads and teacher laptops is also a fairly hefty supply cost. And then kind of getting back to the fixed per pupil allocation. So again, meaning, every first grader we allocate, $18.75. to their classroom for them, and kind of getting back to that higher level than what it was last year. I think we've kind of pushed it down to $5, kind of not knowing what we were gonna see. Capital, again, as I mentioned before, the generator capital project is mostly on this next coming budget, as well as the NTDSC Mobile renovation project. Tuition and other NTDSC costs, slight reduction there. There's a slight reduction in enrollment that we're looking at for next year, but otherwise fairly level costs for NTDSC.
Brian, what, do you have a ballpark on the iPad refresh? And would that be under tuition? Well, I know you've got iPad refresh, you've got the social studies curriculum. Does that, in terms of the budget pages, fall under the tuition, others, and supplies in terms of the percentage change?
Yeah, that would fall under the supplies and materials for those purchases.
So for all of those, so that number is for everything that's in the supplies and materials here, that's the same?
Correct.
Okay. Because it just says supplies, and this says supplies and materials, so I didn't know if there was an additional little kind
Is
of
that
category. Yeah, I'm in the
page
actual
3?
budget. You know what, I'm in the 42-page document also. I was
Which
just-
page?
Oh, I'm sorry, page 5.
5 of the document, 7 of the,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
of the, I know it's, there's
7 of
7 pages.
the,
Yeah, 7 on the PDF, and yes, so they would fall under the supplies budget.
okay,
In there, the roughly 1.44 million for that includes all the classroom supplies, the school supplies that we allocate, as well as other curriculum supplies, but it does also
include
include
the
the
laptops.
that 100,000 for social studies specifically, and then also the new iPad and teacher laptop costs as well.
And if you'll remember, when we brought the iPads and laptops to you, was it April or
Just a
May?
couple months.
Yeah, April, I think. The, one of the things we explained is normally we wouldn't time those two things to happen in the same year, but we had to defer last summer, from, which was it, the laptops we deferred.
Laptops we deferred 1 extra year, and I'd say a decent portion of the iPads as well.
Yeah.
Now,
So they've set the cycle to, they won't occur in the same year, the next time it comes around again, so we won't have such a big expenditure year, sort of.
Well, and that's
things down a little bit.
really just the cost of there, because Derek Sen, the director of technology, actually decided to lease each of them, and it was a 0% financing lease, so we're paying the cost of it spread over 3 years for the iPads and 4 years for the laptops, which is really nice. And then Dr. Santagetti and I kind of worked together to allocate the new ESSER funds, and the new ESSER funds will cover majority of those costs as well. So it does show up in the budget as an additional supply. And they were kind of scheduled to be redone as well, but luckily grant funds are able to.
It just stood out to
Support the
me, Jim,
cost.
in terms of the 10%, 13.4% change in that section. It just
Yeah.
jumped out, so I just wanted to make sure I was understanding it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, overall, it's really, $130,000 difference, but yeah, that 10% kind of
Right, it just,
shows.
right, it's not right. Okay, thank you. I didn't want to take too much time on that, but thanks.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you all.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much,
Ryan.
The tentative budget, I don't know why, I always forget to update this meeting. Tentative budget for 21-22 will be available in the district office in the front if anybody does want to come in and view it. They've got 30 days. I bring back kind of the final budget in September with any changes in staffing, having the new staff actual, salary numbers and things like that. There might be changes here and there, but we'll see. Bring it back in September.
In the next agenda item, you'll
Mhm.
take action to publicize that
Yes.
that's available for public inspection. And Ryan, to your knowledge, In your years in the district, has anybody ever come in? and
You need
publicly
reservations?
inspected?
You know, once I saw a water ring, like somebody had placed their pop can on top of it, but other than that, I don't.
That's your evidence of, well, it's also in this month's packet, right? So somebody could be looking at it right now and saving themselves a trip.
It's also available electronically on the website, under the business services page.
I assume
If
in
anybody
full
wants to come in
disclosure.
and see the hard copy, it's theirs.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
We will move to our action items. Thank you very much, Ryan. I will call for a motion to authorize the notice of publication for the tentative 2021-22 budget, giving notice that the tentative budget is available for public inspection at the Educational Service Center beginning July 1st, 2021, and further stating that a public hearing on the budget will be held on September 17th, 2021, as presented.
Second.
Ruffner,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw. Yes. Bell Jordan. Yes. Espinosa.
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
All right, moving on to the core agreement, I call for a motion to approve the 2021-2027 classified organization representing employees agreement as presented.
Second.
So this is kind of a continuation of negotiation. So typically, as stated in the board memo, we negotiate with the classified group the year after we negotiate with the teachers union. This year we were able to complete the teachers union contract early and approve that again earlier this spring, which allowed us to kind of update the classified agreement much earlier than anticipated. All the changes mirror the changes made in the teacher contract, as they typically do. And the salaries, as you see in the back in Appendix A, that salary schedule is updated annually based on other economic factors of surrounding districts.
So this, I would call it negotiations light process, since they're not technically a union. It's a very amicable process. There appears to be no desire to unionize. We compensate our classified staff very well, and we have great work conditions. And very few issues come out of our very diverse group, because it covers TAs, secretaries, bus drivers, a whole slew of different job classifications. So basically, as Ryan said, we mirror the changes that occur in the teacher contract and this contract the year after it happens.
Jim, can I ask a teeny question?
Sure.
So I know that business leave was something, presented by the EA and that we engaged. Did this leave ever come up with classified, to your knowledge? I mean, I know we're mirroring it, but is there
I mean,
anything that ever
we-
came up?
I wouldn't say it formally came up as a complaint or something to change. We had some of the same challenges because they had the same language before, which was more restrictive for how to use it. So some staff members were not able to use business leave for purposes, for reasons that they wanted to have a day off for in the past. But no, it never came up as a real sticking point of anything. It
Thanks.
really came more up through a handful of teachers.
Okay, thank you.
But we didn't want to have like two separate systems.
Yeah, absolutely.
For different employees.
A record time on negotiating those two contracts?
And again, this one I even
Everybody's scared to say
hesitate,
yes,
I
so I
hesitate
don't
to
wanna
even
say it
call
out
this
loud.
I hesitate to even call this
Yeah,
thing
yes.
negotiations, because it's not really, we're sitting down.
Yeah.
Two different sides and positions. It's really, they agree to go along with the updates that we do to the teachers. And, it's really quite, yeah, smooth.
We'll talk about this again in 2027. who's gonna be here?
Some of you will be
Everybody.
talking about it again.
Whoever's here in
27.
2027.
I just had to think what year it was.
I know, I still have to think
I
about
just had no idea.
today.
When you said 2027, it's like, wow.
Seems so long ago, but it's really not.
I keep thinking 2021 is next year.
Yeah.
I was wrong on that today. Gee.
Okay.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw.
Yes.
Bill Jordan,
Yes.
Espinoza.
Yes.
Joseph,
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes. There's such an alphabetic gap between Joseph and Ruffner. It's amazing there's not somebody in between. All right. We move on to the Board of Education Agreements for District 68. I call for a motion to adopt the updated Skokie School District 68 Board of Education Agreements as presented.
So moved.
No.
We can change. Warshaw,
Yes.
Bill Jordan,
Yes.
Espinoza.
Oh, was there a question?
There is, sorry,
Oh,
I
I'm
just
so
wanted to,
sorry.
I'm so sorry, just one thing, I wanted to point out that in the text, we were trying to move towards more gender neutral pronouns, but then pronouns for superintendent there are at his discretion.
Oh, that's right. She
So
was,
I thought-
she was gonna change that. That's
Yes, so I
right.
thought,
We all missed
I
that?
thought I would just point it out and maybe
Yeah.
we can,
Yeah, we agree. I think
Yeah.
it just got
All
lost
right,
in
yeah,
the
let this-
Good
We
in
can-
the notes. So
well, can
we'll
we
need to,
amend-
we need to vote this down
Yeah.
and then do it again
And we can amend it with that change.
as amended. So,
can we still do that in this meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Warshaw,
I'm saying nay,
no.
right? Yes.
Nay.
Bill Jordan,
Wow, we
I
got
mean,
nay.
Espinoza,
Nay, yes.
Joseph,
No.
Ruffner.
Nay!
All right.
You have it.
Good.
Nay.
Ah!
Don't do it again.
I really gavel me.
I just want it noted that I read carefully.
Thank you, Noah, for the win. All right, so I will turn to Phyllis.
Repeat the motion, but then as amended.
Fantastic.
Pronouns
Let me
amended.
get this, that'll cover us, I think it will. Hi, Una, hope you're enjoying this. Therefore, I call for a motion to adopt the updated Skokie School District 68 Board of Education agreements as presented with the correction to all pronouns to make them gender neutral.
Second.
There you go. Thank you for that catch.
Bill Jordan,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
Joseph,
Yes.
Ruffner,
Yes,
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw.
that wasn't as emphatic. I feel like scared people.
You should do the other.
All right, I now call for a motion to approve the completion of the clock and paging system upgrade at the district's 3 elementary buildings by Modern Media Technology at the cost of $215,025 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
And I'll start off with a short apology. I neglected to include that in my write-up for the board memo. So if you relied on your board memo for all your information there, you wouldn't have seen that one coming, but
We were supposed to read everything thoroughly.
you are. Thank you very much, but
I was just checking on.
Making
Yeah.
sure.
I was
You
outlining
had
it too.
mentioned it,
Part where you could
you
do
had
it.
mentioned
know.
it previously,
I
but,
know.
you know, I think just as a look
I even had a
ahead.
memory of writing it. And
Yeah.
when I saw this morning that it wasn't there, I'm like, what happened? I could swear I remember writing about it, but
Clearly no questions. No spell check, anything in you, Noel? You're good? Fantastic.
Espinoza.
Yes.
Joseph,
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Warshaw.
Yes.
Bill Jordan.
Yes.
Thank you. There were two, we are moving on to communication and information. There were two requests and or responses for information under the Freedom of Information Act during the period May 14th, 2021 through June 10th, 2021. On May 19th, 2021, the district received a commercial request from Zoe Yelson of Smart Procure requesting purchase order and vendor information The response was sent on June 10th, 2021. Thank you. And then on June 5th, 2021, the district received a request from Angela Harkless and Linda Payne of the Illinois Education Association requesting salary scale/schedule and job description information. That response was sent on June 7th, 2021. And thank you. If there is no further business to come before the board, I call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Wow.
Joseph,
Yes.
Rechner,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Warshaw.
Yes.
Bell Jordan,
Yeah.
Espinoza.
Yes.